Hey, this is a HalfSaneFox, and welcome to a review for Final Fantasy III, the 3D remake. Yeah, Mellon's not here, but he also didn't really show up for the streams this time, which was unfortunate. Anyways, normally I try my best to give both an objective and subjective review at the same time. There's a problem with this. I hated Final Fantasy III, which means that everything I say is gonna have bias, and more bias than normal. Like, bias always exists, you can't get rid of it. But in this case, I hated Final Fantasy III, specifically the 3D remake, because I don't have knowledge about the other ones. And some of that is my fault from assuming that the weapon item limit count was still in the game in the 3D remake when it was actually removed. Self-sabotage on a couple of occasions due to trying to complete jobs in a specific manner, which wasn't really encouraged or doable by the game standards. There was a lot of... It was messy. And so, just to kind of elaborate further, I kind of hate how the torches are set up. Anyways, just to kind of elaborate further, but like, there was just. This is true for any RPG when you go in blind, but you're going to make mistakes. And in my case, my mistakes caused by both my going in blind as well as having to constantly reference a guide to make sure I don't miss anything, because I try to 100% every game, and I still plan on 100%ing Final Fantasy III, but this is going to come out before that. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be missing things. You're going to be... It's a learning experience. It's how these games are supposed to go. And unlike Mr. Robot, which just felt entirely incomplete and slapped together, this game does feel complete. It just feels like there was some really stupid choices. Like, and I don't know the story of the production of this game. For all I know, it was as messy as Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time was a freaking mess. This game could have been just as messy, which might explain things like, why are the fire crystal and water crystal so freaking close to each other? Like, they are so close to each other. One happens basically immediately after the other. And I'm not sure if it was like Arya's death scene causes like this thing of like, oh no, it's a travesty, Arya died, look at Greg's sadness, except not really, because one, nobody ever brings up Arya again, which makes her fridged, except she was killed on screen instead of off screen. And two, you don't spend enough time with Arya to feel anything about her death. You literally meet her, she starts the water crystal, and then promptly gets killed. You don't know her well enough to feel anything. And that's kind of a running inconsistency throughout the entire game, is this like weird half-baked feeling this. Like, normally I go on about like styles and everything, to which I hate the style of the 3D remake. The zoom feature and everything, it doesn't feel like it's thought through. It doesn't feel like it's implemented correctly. And I'm not sure how many of these features existed in the Famicom version or the Pixel remaster, because I haven't played those, obviously. And it just feels like the game is a list of oversights. The game already has 22 jobs that you have to reach level 99, but at the same time, there's no way to grind jobs comfortably. The only way to grind jobs comfortably is to, at the very beginning of the game, before you reach a level 30, which apparently is a good level to beat the game. I disagree. I struggled like hell. Is to like... You have to do all your grinding at level 30, because... And the game does not explain this in any capacity. Character level determines your stats. Job level determines modifiers for your stats. In other words, all of your stats are determined by your character level. And if your character level gets too high, then even with the mini spell equipped, which reduces your damage to 1, you have such incredibly high attack power that you can still melee everything to death by the time you reach level 50 and do more than 1 damage, which isn't useful when you're trying to grind jobs. I'm finding workarounds and trying to just do my best, and maybe I'll just make it so I do, like, instead of trying to low level grind, I'm gonna just high level grind by making everybody the black belt, and just going through and max leveling in the crystal tower and then switching roles there, because that's something that's not explained. But your max health is actually, because my max health kept ending up weird and I couldn't understand why, and now I know why. Is my max health, it's determined by your vitality at level up, which means that if you're a job that doesn't have high vitality when you level up, you are permanently neutering yourself for the end game, which again is one of those things that feels like it's a logical inconsistency. Why is health determined by your vitality stat at point of level up, not just determined by your vitality stat by your level? That way your health is always equivalent to what your job is. And job levels are just weird. They feel weirdly inconsistent and not useful. And the reason for that is because they're just modifiers. Like, they improve the number of times you can hit. They improve the number of times you can attack. And sometimes they're just really weird and inconsistent. There was a time where both Greg and Ford had the exact same stats, but Greg was hitting 4 times harder, but they were the same job level, so that doesn't make any sense. Game felt clunky and unfinished, which is really weird considering it's a remake. They had every chance to fix the mistakes of the original, including the weird job distribution, the weird equipment distribution in the stores. Like, you get jobs from the water crystal, and then if you actually choose those jobs, you can't get gear for any of those jobs until after the next 2 major story beats. The books from the scholars state that they do lightning damage, but they don't do any type of elemental damage. They improve the elemental damage of items you use, which would be useful if you could buy items that actually attack, which you can't. Or at least I don't remember seeing them in store. It's entirely possible that I have a bias against the stores because I hated them and they were so hard to navigate. At least for me. No, I do not believe that the 3D remake is a good game. I believe that Final Fantasy III is an interesting game, and that it has potential to be amazing, and that the 3D remaster is probably pretty good. But I'm actually going to just quick check like the store page for Final Fantasy III 3D remake. Yeah, its English reviews only have 80% positivity. Its recent reviews have 68% positivity. But if I compare that to like Final Fantasy III's 3D remake, pixel remaster, Final Fantasy III, the pixel remaster is very positive, 93%. It's 91%. And probably because it fixes a bunch of stuff. It removes the need for arrows, amongst other things. So your bow just determines your attack stat instead of having to have both bows and arrows, which is incredibly annoying. I kind of get it, and I kind of like it, but that doesn't work with the way that the inventory system is designed when you can only carry a max of 99 arrows, and you cannot replenish the arrows that the person is using directly, making Rangers so awkward to level up. But yeah, I don't know. There's other design choices that pissed me off as well. Like, the menu was always too loud because you cannot change the menu audio, which is a weirdly common thing, is audio before you pass the menu isn't affected by your settings, which means that everything's just way too fucking loud. Should have sworn there. Whatever. I'm tired and upset. Anyways, no, I do not like Final Fantasy III 3D. I do like Final Fantasy III and think it has amazing potential, but it was a thing of I needed more information than the game ever gave me. I spent so many turns in a row messing up the Scholar and the Knight because I didn't know how they worked. Because the game doesn't elaborate. And the Knight is kind of weirdly useless unless you train everybody as monks, black belts, or I think ninjas have high vitality first. Because the way the knight works is it only defends allies if their health is considered low. And I have no idea if he can block for magic attacks, and I have no idea how universal magic attacks, like magic attacks that hit all 4 people rather than hitting one at a time, interact with the knight, because I never got to experience that, because everybody just freaking died from high health to low health. They never went to low health, so the knight never defended them. It would be like, oh yeah, he still has 3,000 health remaining. He's fine. Dies instantly in the next attack because he wasn't fine. And he wasn't set up for that. To which the stat distribution in that game makes no sense. And you cannot understand the status screen. And again, these might be all things that were fixed in the Pixel Remaster. I don't know. I haven't played the Pixel Remaster. I still have yet to beat Final Fantasy III 3Ds to 100%, which I've done to the other 2 games. Mind you, I did not do that to the first game on the channel, but I did it to the second game on the channel, and I did do it to the first game the first time I played it on my channel and deleted back in like 2019. And so I still plan on 100%ing the game. It's just a case of I don't know how to go about 100%ing it. The end point where you have to get to the Crystal Tower with an ancient lab maze is just... it's so annoying, and they had every freaking chance to fix it for the 3D remake, and they just didn't. And I think that's what upsets me the most. No, I do not like Final Fantasy III, the 3D remake. No, I do not think it is worth like the $20 it is to get that game. What is it, actually? Oh, it's only $18. So $20. No, wait, $15. Ugh, money is weird. I spent so much time off stream grinding too, and I barely made any progress because when it's 4 actions minimum to level up, and battles will only last like 2 if you go to 2 low in area, but then they go to 18 if you go to 2 high in area, meaning you have to try and balance this weird sweet spot that all battles take exactly 4 separate turns minimum, because everybody requires anywhere between 4 to 14 turns to level up. Meaning you have to have 3 people just stand there and do nothing for so long. It's just not a good game. It's not a bad game. It's like... how do I want to word this? The choices that were made in the design of the game prevent the mechanics themselves from being not intriguing. Entertaining, and to be curious about them, to be wanting to mess with and experiment with these mechanics, to be... yeah, I don't know how to word it. I just don't. That's nicer. Anyways. I just feel like every wrong decision was made for the 3D remake. Because obviously there was limitations and problems and XYZ with the original Famicom version, but that was sacrifices being made due to the platform that you were operating with. There is no such excuse for the 3D remake. You had a stronger console, significantly stronger console. You had everything your predecessors did wrong to fix it as a base, and you messed up. There's nothing else to say there. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh. But personally speaking, I do not think Final Fantasy III, the 3D remake, is a good game or worth your money. Because I could excuse it if it's the original. Because I can understand restraints and constraints and issues, and the idea that limitations breed creativity and a bunch of like other things, like, oh yeah, it makes sense that they made this choice. They didn't have the time. But what's the excuse for a remake? Do you understand what I'm saying when I say that? What's the excuse for a remake? You are a remake. Everything was laid out for you. You didn't have to recreate the plot beats. You didn't have to design the maps. You just had to, well, you kind of have to design the maps, but less so. There was... yes, you had to change all the models from their 2D equivalents to the 3D equivalent. But it's not like you had to recode the battle programming. Those should all still work. And even if you did, you have a base, you have a knowledge. You don't have to make something new. You have everything already. You just had to implement it. And the implementation feels like shit. And I still haven't beaten the dragons, which still feel ridiculous and unfair. Like, I can't tell if I just have low amount of HP for where I'm in the game. I'm not sure how strong you're supposed to be to fight the steel golem. Apparently, level 30 is like the level you're supposed to be able to beat the game at, but I'm level 50 and I struggled like fucking mad, and so I don't believe a word out of these people's mouths that level 30 is a normal difficulty to beat the game. But I can't tell if that's because of my choices or because I don't actually know the stats of my equipment, or because you can't really see stats when you just get two flat numbers, attack and defense. You're not even told if that attack is your magic attack or not. Are magic attack and attack the same thing in that game? Is defense and magic defense the same thing? Well, no, they're not. I know they're not. They appear as two separate fucking numbers on the status screen, but you can't tell on the equipment screen. And you can't see the fact that they have stat boosting effects. And even with all of the knowledge I got externally, and I can't tell if there was some weird shit going on, because the guides I was reading and the information in front of me were not lining up. Like, they told me to equip the Orielcum on a ninja. First of all, I never found an Orielcum, so I have no idea what it's on about. And it told me to equip the Bloodsword on the ninja. You can't. You fundamentally cannot. It is not within the game's purview to equip either of those weapons, one of which I don't even know if it exists, to the ninja. But yeah, lack of information, constant need for study, information being wrong like 90% of the time. It was rough. I don't have anything else to say. It was ridiculously freaking rough, man. And I still haven't beaten the game. I still need to beat the Steel Golem, to which only 3.6% of the 3D Remake players have ever done. I still have to hunt down all 3 of the dragons for the bestiary 100%. I still have to hunt 2 enemies in the World of Darkness, which is going to be a massive pain in my rear to get back to, by the way. Because I didn't want to fight them and potentially die and lose everything, because you're not allowed to save. From the beginning of the Crystal Tower all the way to the end of the game, you cannot save. That is 2 straight hours of gameplay that you cannot save in. From sound design to menu design to user experience as a general whole, the way that it was automatically clicked into menus whenever you entered them, to sound not being consistent, to having issues with everything else, I hate Final Fantasy III, the 3D remake. I do not recommend this game. Try the Pixel Remaster. It's probably better. If you're gonna play Final Fantasy III anyways, play the Pixel Remaster. Don't suffer the way I did.
Hey, this is the HalfSaneFox, and thanks for watching. I'm going to end this video here, and if you like this content, I highly recommend that you check the VOD or just wait for the next episode to release. And maybe click on one of the end screen cards once those finally show up.